We've talked a lot recently on Bonkers Economics about poverty and about how the UK is becoming progressively poorer. And I was struck last week by a story concerning the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rachel Reeves, where she is now encouraging UK government departments to prioritise buying things in Britain, particularly steel and shipbuilding and IT and things like that, even if they're not cheaper, because she's trying to boost British industry and she wants the money to go back into the British economy. But then there's another question which people are saying, well, hang on a minute, if it's cheaper to buy stuff abroad, if it's cheaper to get a ship built in, I don't know, South Korea or even Denmark or something like that, then we should do that because it will cost us less money. And the government department is running a budget, like a household budget, where it's got an income and it's trying to manage its expenditure, then it wants to go and buy its stuff in the cheapest place. So there's a whole question here around free trade, because free trade has been at the heart of UK economic policy for a very, very long time, and particularly since the reforms of the 1980s. And we've taken the view that we don't really care very much about our industrial capacity, about our manufacturing, because we can buy things cheaper elsewhere, and we can then do things like financial services or advertising or property management, whatever it might be, and we can sell those services abroad, and that will make up the difference. Well, apart from the fact that that's proved to be complete baloney, okay, we can sell financial services abroad and we can bring in money from that, but we're not generating any new wealth by doing that. We're just acquiring money from abroad, which does not go anywhere like far enough to compensate for the over expenditure that we have on goods and services that we buy from abroad. And that shows up in this image here that we've seen before, which is the balance of payments effectively. So this is our balance of payments, the balance of imports against exports up until about 1986, from about 1950. And then this is since then. So since the advent of those reforms in the 1980s, we've seen this flood of red ink. We've been importing far, far more than we've been exporting because our manufacturing capacity has gone to the dogs. So what's going on? What's the truth of this situation? Well, the reality is that when you buy things cheaper abroad, you are in effect importing a sort of poverty, because you're importing the low wages that are being paid abroad to make those things cheaper. So when you're buying goods made in China for very, very low wages, then the impact of that is to make the UK poorer, because you're importing that poverty effectively with those goods. And similarly, when you're spending money abroad, you're exporting your wealth. So you're exchanging the wealth that you've got in your country and you're importing the poverty from abroad. And that may seem counterintuitive, but it's the reality of the situation, that the money stays in the UK. Goods might be more expensive, but the fact of the matter is that the money you're paying for them is going back into the UK economy. It's making UK people wealthier. So one of the consequences, for example, of running down your manufacturing industry, all those well-paid jobs, and buying all your stuff from somewhere else, is that you then have a load of people who are either unemployed or who have low-paid work, who can't support their families, and then you have to bail them out with benefits and that sort of thing. So you're not really winning at the end of the day. At the end of the day, the wealth is going abroad, which this image shows. And this is all because our manufacturing industry has gone very, very much downhill in the last 40 or 50 years, as this image here shows. So here the green section is the UK's productive industry, manufacturing and agriculture and that sort of thing, in the 1950s, and then now down to very, very little today. And this is the financial and business services sector, which has grown enormously to replace it, but which does not, of course, distribute wealth in the same way, because it does not provide those really well-paid manufacturing jobs. It's not a productive activity producing real wealth to make everybody feel and be actually wealthier. So what's the takeaway from this? Well, the theory of free trade is that, like the rising tide, it lifts all boats. As goods and services move freely around the world's economy, we can produce more efficiently, and everybody will get wealthier. But actually, the key word in the phrase free trade is not free, but it's trade, or more importantly, trader. Because the people who do really well out of free trade are traders, the people who buy cheap and sell expensive. And the people who pay for that, generally speaking, are the producers and the consumers. So as I say, there are winners and losers, and the losers outnumber the winners quite significantly in many cases. So Rachel Reeves may be onto something here. She may be showing the first sign of a sort of break with this 40-year thing about neoliberalism and about free trade and about generating wealth in money turnover terms, but not wealth in terms of real productive capacity. And if that's the case, well, that is to be welcomed, because until the UK starts thinking about wealth in terms of what it's producing, which is really worth having, and not thinking about wealth in terms of money turnover, which is easily created by buying things cheaply abroad and bringing them here and selling them for a higher price, until we make that shift, then the UK economy is not going to get back into shape. It's going to continue to decline, and that is why we are all going to get poorer.